Protection, and as I've stated over and over in previous shows, federal gag orders previously on all National Weather Service and NOAA employees, because our government certainly does not want the population to wake up to the fact that climate engineering, highly toxic, devastating climate engineering, is going on above their heads every single day. And when I hear from those people who convince themselves that if this was really going on, these agencies would speak out, how in the world are they going to speak out? What an absurd notion that these people from these agencies are going to be lining up to make their voices heard when they lose their jobs, their retirements, or much, much more, depending on how much they know. Who in their right mind would think such people are going to be lining up with no First Amendment protection, federal gag orders, Trump issuing even more of these now? Is the direction we're heading not crystal clear? Does it look like we're heading any different direction with this new administration? It doesn't to me. And my experiences with USDA biologists, by the way, I'm sorry to say, they're unlike this EPA official that I'm communicating with. I know local USDA scientists in Northern California that, I'm sorry to say, have shown no courage, no honor, none. And I worked extensively with some of these experts. And I've been in the field, as I've stated in previous shows, testing soils, getting pH values that were astoundingly higher than the baselines which we had in our possession, pH values that can only be attributed to the massive amounts of heavy metals in our rain, which alters rain pH, which begins to load the soils, which it's doing, and none of them had the courage to say anything officially. In fact, as I've stated in previous shows, I had one look at me in the field while we were testing and say, what do you want us to do about it? How about standing up, being a man, being a father, being a citizen of the planet, and telling the truth, no matter what the consequences, because to tell the truth,
hey y'all, it's about 1:30 and Harp is blasting. It's like you're going up a hill and your ears are about to pop, but they never pop. It's like the sound of a microwave inside of your head. And there's a casino truck. And so we have this sort of intense fog over. There's no... I took some pictures of the fog rolling in, if you call that fog. I believe it's pretty much artificial. The Coast Guard was doing maneuvers out in the bay earlier today. It was quite windy. There's no wind at all right now. But mainly the reason why I am here is to basically acknowledge the Harp frequencies. And so we have a slight drizzle coming down. It's probably more like particulates. It's probably more like dry snowflakes, and it's actually not that cold. But yeah, we have the Harp frequencies blasting quite intensely. Pretty much woke me up out of a sound sleep. Once again, it's like 1:30 a.m. here. Overlooking Humboldt Bay. And so we have the main tower is right there. It's straight ahead. Yeah, kind of like where you see that grid in the middle of the picture right there. That's the main tower. Then there's another one right over to the right of that one, about in the center of the picture there. And
I don't want to see you fly. I just want to see your smile.
so those are the nearest towers. Now with this, the Harp, basically,
I don't want to see you cry.
they can be, they can use the cell towers, the other cell towers. I'm not sure where the nearest other cell tower is at this point, but I know those two towers
Something strange is going on.
are the main towers. And so there's, looks like one tower right ahead, straight ahead of us there. Right there, I didn't notice that tower in the daytime, but it looks like there's a tower right there. That might be a newer tower. And I had my other Sony camera, which is a little bit better camera than this Nikon, to try and capture the frequencies. One of the last times I was out here, and I could not, it does not capture the frequencies humming. But take my word for it, the whatever ultrasonic X-band, it's also called next-rad radar systems are going off, and it's probably pushing this haze bank, fog bank, geoengineered material bank of material somewhere, wherever they want it, whatever kind of weather event they're trying to produce. Once again, so the sprayed materials in the air can be pushed, pulled, condensed, dispersed according to the radio frequencies they use. Sending the frequencies up into the ionosphere to heat or cool the sprayed materials. And once again, the sprayed materials will absorb any moisture. Typically they will spray a lot along the coast here. And we have respiratory disease, and the third leading cause of death. We also have dementia, which is related to Alzheimer's, is the first leading cause of death now. And all public officials basically sign a disclosure agreement not to talk about this in order to stay protected. So basically that means that any public official that talks about geoengineering does not have the government's protection if they talk about it. So that's why when you might ask a public official about it, they might say something like, "I don't buy that." And the way I take that is basically they're not getting paid enough to talk about it. And so most undoubtedly that's one of the reasons why they take that job, is that they are social people that are able to relate with people, and or they may have just stepped in the job through inheriting the job through some of their relatives or something like that. Sociopaths is what I call them. And so there's my cat. My cat down there. Don't run across the street, cat. Coming back this way now. Anyway, so yeah, I can feel it in my ear quite a bit now, and that cat down there probably feels it too. So yeah, this is pretty upsetting when the general public is basically kept in the dark about this subject. These subjects, it's covert control of the environment. Basically, it's a control without the public consent. Probably not constitutional at all, and yeah, once again highly compartmentalized, where people in lower offices are at a need-to-know basis, where they may not know anything about it, and it's part of their job description not to talk about it, or only to talk about certain things. But yeah, so usually what happens is when I hear these harp frequencies going off, I'll get up and make a movie. So it just motivates me to get up and make a movie. A lot of times I have a lot of things to do the next morning, and it's sort of tough to get up when these things are blasting off. And there's a policeman. But you know, what are you gonna do? You got these things blasting in your head, and you can't sleep. And I've told a couple of people about that. I said, look, man, I'm not in control of things here, man. If they want to turn on the harp and blast me out of bed, you know, I'm not getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning to do something. And that's normally when I hear it in the middle of the night. Typically they'll start off at 2:30, and now it's only 1:30 right now. So they started off pretty early this morning, and so yeah. It's a covert control. Now you can see it looks like there's a slight gap right over here in the sprays. And that could be the light reflecting off the material, sprayed material. And for those who don't know, once again, the sprayed material typically consists of barium, strontium, aluminum, coal ash, chalk, sulfur. These materials are commonly found in the geoengineering weather modification patents. And so these are exactly the materials that are showing up in the ground and rainwater tests. And I've done water tests here of the rain, And what I was trying to be completely honest with the people there. We have the North Coast labs. They charge me like 50 or 60 bucks to test the water. I said, well, will it test, will it show me, barium, strontium? And they said, yes, it will show barium, strontium. And of course, the test came back negative, no barium, strontium. But from what I understand, a lot of the standard tests will not pick up nanoparticulates or micro dust of these particles. And so the other thing is, probably want to talk about the Fukushima. I don't know if it's the Fukushima or what exactly they're spraying. So for the last 3 or 4 years, every morning when I wake up, I have basically burning throat and eyes. So yeah, there's something in the air. Could be the barium and strontium they're spraying. Most likely it has a lot to do with that. Could have something to do with the Fukushima still going off, whatever, several hundred tons of nuclear waste per day dumped into the Pacific. And then what I heard was the Fukushima is basically melting. It's melting into the ocean. The whole floor of Fukushima is falling into, is melting into the Pacific Ocean.
Every day now.
So yeah. And then if you search for whatever species die off, you'll find that there are tons of species that are dying off. Mass animal beachings, and you'll find out a lot about that. And then the other thing, basically, as Dane Wigington has talked about, we have basically the planet I believe it's pretty much lost its ability to go into a natural state of weather, simply because the Frankenstein weather people have geoengineered the Franken weather, and so we don't have any normal weather. And the ozone layer it's a known consequence that spraying particulates in our air depletes the ozone layer, and they are continuing to do it, probably because of the fact that the spraying is having a greater impact on cooling the planet than the ozone layer could. So they're probably sacrificing the ozone layer to produce the cooling effect of the sprays. We also have record temperatures. Siberia is basically all melting, and record high temperatures before the middle of summer. Of course, the poles are undoubtedly experiencing tremendous meltdown. And the other day we had some sunshine. I took off my shirt and I was out in the yard for about a good hour or 2 hours, and there's another policeman. Hey, what about the geoengineering? And so basically I was out in the yard for 2 hours, and 2 or 3 hours possibly, and I've got a sunburn on my back that will not quit. I'm surprised I don't have blisters on my back, simply because the ozone layer is probably diminished down to the size of a hair thick, and once we have the ozone layer so depleted, what will happen is the plants will no longer be able to uptake nutrients. This is one of the consequences of the sprays, the fallout of barium, aluminum, strontium, chalk, coal ash, sulfur. The plants will no longer have the ability to photosynthesize or take in nutrients. And once again, we have dementia that's related to Alzheimer's, the #1 cause of death. Respiratory disease, the 3rd leading cause of death. This is 2017. And there goes a sheriff. So, yeah. Now, I have definitely noticed the effect in the last, well, since Fukushima, the effect on the plants. Up here in Northern California, basically, we had some pretty hardy growth. This is the land of the tallest trees in the world, basically the Redwood Forest. And I will typically see tops of trees burnt and the edges of trees burnt. We have basically the ozone layer is so thin, we're probably getting X-rays coming right down from the sun. So X-rays are basically destroying basically every living thing on the planet. And so, yeah, we got, basically the way I see it is a couple of factors. We have the people that want to control other people, dumbing down the populace through fluoride, GMO foods, and not allowing each generation to pass down their knowledge, wisdom, or reason. It's in the Bible. If you go and search for the Bible, in the Bible, about those who do not want others to have the reason of their forefathers or the logic of their forefathers, you will find reference to that in the Bible. And I believe that's what this whole thing is all about. Not allowing the people to know that others are trying to control them. So basically we have people that are motivated by the system, and that's all they are. They're basically compartmentalized in their job for security, for retirement, for a promise of a future. And then meanwhile we have the basically biosystem, ecosystem collapse, and they don't see it right in front of them. And so most of my knowledge comes from the internet. And you know, when the Navy was here locally, they had a couple of meetings before they started doing the Northwest Testing and Training Program. So the Navy's Northwest Testing and Training Program was the acknowledgement that the Navy was going to be testing weapons off our coast. And this is the West Coast, Northern California. Basically, from what I understand, it's most of the coasts around the United States. They called it Northwest Testing and Training, but from what I understand, it's also in the Gulf of Mexico. It's also on the East Coast. So when they came and did a public meeting, one time on the second or third meeting, I came early. I talked to 4 people there. They said, well, we don't know anything about Harp. And from what I understand is that the Navy was a major funder of Harp. And so these people who are represented the Navy for a public meeting regarding the Northwest Testing and Training Program, they did not know anything about Harp, is what they said. And they also told me that, well, if you heard about it on the internet, then it's not true. And so one of the things that I heard is basically they're testing and training depleted uranium weapons off the coast, off the Pacific Northwest coast here specifically. So they're using radioactive radioactive ammunition and testing it off the coast here. That's probably one of the reasons why we're having respiratory disease, major cause of death. It's the reason why I have burning eyes and throat every morning. That's probably one of the reasons. So, yeah, depleted uranium. I also had a friend who told me that there were some police back east that were using depleted uranium. So, for instance, if they shot a so-called criminal with the depleted uranium, even if they missed a so-called criminal with the depleted uranium dust would be in the near environment and cause problems that way as well. So, yeah, depleted uranium, DU, ammunition, or whatever. Just Google that and you'll find out a lot about that. So, from what I understand, they use it in the military. Typically, some of the soldiers that are using the DU ammunition have no idea. And that reminds me of one time I went to a yard sale and I saw some camo gear. They said, yes, this came directly from Iraq. And I'm like, oh, cool, you know. And then, and they go, well, yeah, it might even have some sand from Iraq, you know, in the pockets. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think much of it till I got home. And I'm like, wait a minute. Sand, okay, dust, depleted uranium dust, all right. So whenever I find any of these camo clothing, I always shake them out really good so that I don't get any of that dust. But it probably doesn't really matter because there's so much in the air column right now that we are breathing with every breath we take. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a policeman, military, public official, elected official. You're going to be breathing that stuff. Unless you're underground and you've got filtered air that's filtered, well, of course you're going to last a lot longer than most of us, but you won't have a very natural life. And so if you don't care about sunshine, the environment that most people are born in, then, you know, I guess it doesn't matter. If you're an alien that wants to live in a closed environment, artificial, then, you know, that's where you live. So, and you're fine with that, I guess. But for most of us who are born in a kind of a normal, whatever, earthly habitat, things are changing pretty rapidly here. And for those people who are kind of locked into a contract for their jobs, there's no wiggle room, they can't talk about anything, and they can't be involved in the bigger picture of things. That's a little crazy in my world. So yeah, so that's my report. I ranted off and on all day. You can get more information at geoengineeringwatch.org. We also have a local Facebook group. It's NorCal Geo-Engineering Watch on Facebook. You can also go to California Skywatch, aircraft.org, and there are tons of valid websites out there that you'll find that will give you more information on HARP and weather modification. It's also called stratospheric aerosol injection, solar radiation management, albedo enhancement, simply weather modification, weather warfare. Yeah, educate yourself. Thanks for watching.